All right. Congratulations, everybody. We made it. We're here. We're at the C1X table. Today, we got Cooper Arnold, Kevin Zane. Dude, how are you guys?
I'm great.
I'm doing wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on here. This is fun. This is exciting. It's new for, I think, pretty much all of us. So, whether you wanted to be here or just like willing, I really appreciate it. So thanks for coming out.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Dude, so a couple weeks ago, we got to come out, play Foxtail. You've been trying to get me out there for like, I don't know, months probably at this point.
Yeah.
And then probably Peter before then has always been like, you got to get out there, you got to get out there. And like, but you hosted us. We got to come out and play. I was super impressed.
Thanks, I'm glad.
Yeah.
It's been a process.
Worth the trip. Yeah, it was worth the trip.
Yeah. But so that most of what we're talking about tonight is Foxtail Farm. You can give a higher level summer if you want, but you basically have your own property out there. I think you said it's around 70 acres. Mm-hmm. You've built a like championship level course on there. Plus you're working on what you're calling a roots course, which is, it kind of intermixes a little bit with the championship level course. It sounds like it has its own separate holes. So it's almost like you've got 1.5 courses out there, 2 separate, but shared space is kind of a thing. And what's exciting to talk to you and kind of dig in is I think there's a lot of people out there, even with pros, Simon Lizotte, Paul Macbeth, which he's hosting Worlds now on his course that he made, but it's always sort of like, Steve Brinster, but people always talk about like, oh, it'd be so sick to like have a course on my property and do all this stuff. And I'm like, yes, if you're willing, because like, I don't even want to mow my own lawn, but the idea of that sounds incredible. But like, I know like deep down, like I wouldn't even be able to do it.
Right.
So
yeah, that's probably the number one thing that people say as soon as they pull up into parking and I meet them to get waiver signatures is, oh, you're living the dream. Like this is what every disc golfer wants. And it's like, do you like to mow and weed eat?
Yeah, that's like all I hear you talk about.
That's mostly what you end up doing is maintaining the course. People say, I bet you play out here all the time. It's like once every 2 weeks, once a month, maybe. Like I throw shots, but I don't really play out there because there's just a significant amount of work involved in keeping it going and like improving it. And I think there's models where you could be an owner of a course if you had maybe more capital or were interested in just the ownership and design part of it, where you could hire people to do the other stuff. But that's not the track I've taken, not something I was capable of doing, but also not something I'm interested in just because I do like mowing and I like weed eating. So part of it is a Zen exercise maybe, where it's you get to sit on a mower and like, you get to like cooperate with the course, I guess.
Yeah. And I just get this like overwhelming, like sort of pride from you, which is really, really cool. And I think if you don't have that, like this is probably not for you.
Yeah. I would agree with that. If you're wanting to buy 18 baskets and put them out in your field and let people come out no matter the conditions, like you can certainly do that. But I get really picky when I let people come out, and like I will tell them, I'd rather tell you no and have you upset with me that I didn't let you come play than have you come play something that I consider substandard. It's maybe a flaw. I'm not so sure if that's the right way to do it. I met up with some of the local Tonganoxie guys on Wednesday, and we played out in McLellan. And the course up there is pretty nice. The grass was just kind of high and thatchy, like because it had just been mowed, and like we've had so much rain this summer that it's been hard to stay on top of the mowing. And I was talking to them, I was like, they were perfectly happy, having a blast. And I was thinking like, I would never allow people to come out and play my course if it looked like this.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's something, I have some flexibility in saying no because of that, but also like maybe a flaw, maybe something I got to get over a little bit more.
I think that's a creative designer, like inside, like you see all the flaws, like even just like setting up this room with like the crew back here. It's like, we sat here for about 10, 12 minutes and they were still kind of just tweaking because it's just like you can and as the designer, as like the developer, it's like, well, you're always going to see the little things, but like once you just say like, I need to step back and just like let people play, I bet it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. It's the mantra I've been trying to repeat to myself is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Just sometimes good enough is good enough, even if it's not what you want it to be. Even if it doesn't match the picture that's in your head, I think maybe that's one of the reasons I've been so hesitant to allow people to come out for a long time, was just because I know how I want this to look in the long run, and I know what I want it to be. And if you're not in my head, you can't see that.
Yeah.
And so I've, slowly invited more and more people to come out. And then finally now it's on UDisc. People can text me and get a reservation and come out and play. But I was resistant to that for a very long time, just because I wanted the friends who would come out that I could say, this will look like this. Apologies right now. It doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
Or the group of people that I had come out for a long time, my friend Matt Oval and his crew, they played when there were thorns and ticks and high grass and just conditions I wouldn't wish upon anybody. But like, they were willing to come out and like, help me tweak the design and help me fix it and help me make it more fun. And like, so I kind of controlled that part of it for a long time. And it's finally getting to the point where it's like, I can be okay with the random person coming out that, maybe doesn't know exactly what they're getting into.
Right. And
So-
Kevin, you've been out there since the beginning, or not close to the beginning. I feel like you've been talking about the course before it was like maybe fully
We
done.
walked it before it was ever a course.
Yeah. I remember one day you came out and we were walking around looking at potential holes, and there was a bald eagle circling. And that was the first time I'd ever seen a bald eagle out there on the property.
Nice.
Yeah. And we jumped some old barbed wire that was out there, and we were like walking through the woods, and man, it was thick.
It was treacherous.
It was rough.
But you could see it from the get-go.
When was this? Like 2015?
We moved out there in 2015.
Okay.
That would have been a year or two after that, probably.
Year or two after.
Like
Okay.
enough to where I'd gotten my tractor and I'd figured out how to run a tractor, because I didn't know how to do that. So once I was able to like get some of the stuff mowed and kind of partially maintain it, then that's when like Kevin started coming out and Matt and his crew started coming out.
What was your first impression? Is just walking out, course isn't made. You're just walking around. You're trying to like envision what Cooper might be talking about.
So Cooper is an absolute madman. We go for a hike in the woods behind his house. He has sort of a layout, a couple features within the woods that he knows he wants to incorporate. Like there's sort of a rocky slope sort of toward the back edge of it. There's the precipice is sort of the signature hole. Well, one of the signature holes. I feel like right away it was just like very exciting.
Yeah.
Because at that point I'd known Cooper for a few years. Like he takes projects seriously. He gets involved. He's like very thoughtful about design, about how it plays, about how like different types of people play. We started testing holes early on, like just throwing discs in the woods with pretty minimal clearing. And I don't think I'm any less excited today than I was in the beginning.
No, you're like one of the biggest advocates for sure. Like
Yeah.
just hearing you talk about like, "Ooh, I'm going out to Cooper's, like again, like trying to get me like I can't make it," but you're like, but then I would ask how like the round went or whatever, like just the way you talk about like what you're doing out there, and like you just seem to be like so into it, which is like super cool. But do you want to back up? Like I feel like. So I definitely want to just go back to, I feel like I've gotten little tidbits of just where maybe you guys have been around. Like obviously we work together a little bit, and like I know like you were in Georgia at some point. I feel like you were dropping hints of like Massachusetts. Like where did you grow up and like first start learning about disc golf, or just kind of take us like way back?
Sure. So I've been playing disc golf for 20 years now. I think this is my 20th season playing. I'm from Kansas City, Olathe, South Kansas City originally, and then lived in Massachusetts for a little bit. But at that point, I'd already been playing for 7 years or so, 7, 8 years. And it's definitely that part was a formative experience in like the design aspect. But basically, been playing for a long time, playing at a decently high level, at least locally. I always kind of recoil that I'm technically a professional. I'd rather say technically a professional because I don't make a living doing this.
Right.
Semi-professional, local pro, like that kind of stuff. Winning local events. That's where I got a lot of the baskets at Foxtail. Is I'd win a tournament and I'd be like, cool, I got enough to buy a basket. And like, that's where I bought some of the baskets from. But even going way back, I learned at a summer camp that I was working at, and it was an object course. So there was a sign on a tree and a line painted below that, and you just had to hit the tree in some capacity, nick it, whatever.
Yep.
Very short course. Me and my friend Kevin Simpson, we played it's like sometimes 7-8 rounds a day on it because it was so short. We just loop them. We'd restart our round if we didn't ace the first 2 holes.
What camp is this?
It was called El Barcia at the time. It was a church camp south of Kansas City a little bit.
I worked at Youth Front as a cabin leader 1 year.
Okay, well, yeah.
So I know exactly what you're
Front
talking
Camp
about.
South.
Yep.
That's where I learned, and then that maybe is another part of the story of how I end up in the country and how I end up building a disc golf course. Is I worked grounds there one summer, and I have a very specific memory of. It was rainy outside, and we were like, cool, we don't have to do anything. And then Fletch, who was the camp manager, was like, go change the oil in the ATVs. Never changed the oil in anything. I didn't grow up doing that kind of stuff. I didn't know what I was doing, and it was just like an eye-opening experience. Like, oh, this isn't that hard. You can kind of just like move this bolt out of the way, like take out the old oil, put the new oil. And it was just something, it was like kind of simple, and it was something that I think awakened a sort of curiosity. And that's something I kind of try to take into everything that I do now. And part of the reason I wanted to live out in the country is because not only do you get to experience like the wide breadth of challenges, but you almost have to. And it's also where I learned to, fall in love with mowing and weed eating and some of the things that became essential for later. So not only did it start, my disc golf, I guess, love affair, you might call it, but like it also like got me on the track of like, here's how to run maintenance equipment.
Yeah, you almost got a twofer there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was Circle C.
Okay, I did most of my time at Circle C, and then I moved to El Bar C. That's a story for another podcast.
Yeah, for sure. But it's funny though, because I think I'm trying to remember like the first time I really played disc golf, and I think it was at Circle C because they had the same thing. They had probably only like 5 holes, but it was like an object, and it was actually like one of our cabin leader nights was to like play and like, well, Brennan's big into ultimate, like he's gonna be so good, and I was like, I forget what I think it was a beast. They just handed me like a champion beast, and I'm like, well, I don't know how to throw this, but like I was easily like the farthest thrower, but it like doesn't mean I had any accuracy. Like I couldn't get it to go flat, like nothing, but I did win. But that was sort of my like, because no one else could even throw at all. But that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But small world for sure.
Absolutely.
But, so you said and where did like? I know you've said Georgia, right? Is that where you were?
I started in Kansas. My very first round was Rosedale, down under. My roommate lured me out. It was a good time.
So like in college? What do you mean?
2009. I owned a house in Turner, sort of down the street from Rosedale. I had a roommate who was playing on occasion. It didn't really sound very appealing to me, but he lured me out one day. I had nothing going on, and I was like absolutely enthralled from the get-go. So down under, I don't even remember how it went, but it was fun. It was a hike in the woods. Like I love the outdoors. I love nature, hiking.
Were you playing ultimate first?
I played ultimate in high school.
Okay.
Not very competitively. Just, I was familiar with throwing a disc. I grew up with Frisbees in the garage as a kid, like just playing with my brothers, we'd play like a version of object golf, I guess if you want to call it that. But none of us had any idea about disc golf. My thoughts on disc golf when I learned about it were like, why has nobody told me about this? But
it was a real like eye opener. It was
from
like,
there, yeah.
This is like my new thing, or like at that level.
It became my new thing.
Yeah.
I got a little set of discs right away.
Starter kit or
an Elite X Talon, a DX Wraith, Big Bird Rock, and an 86 Softy.
You got some good frisbees.
Do you? What are your? I want to. What are your first? discs?
My first disc that I ever bought was a JLS. At the camp, they had some loaner discs in the sports center, and me and my friend Kevin basically just stole the ones that we liked. We kept them in our cabin so that nobody else could get those. And so I got a JLS, and then went up to Oklahoma Joe's at the gas station, and then found one in the menagerie of discs that they have there. So that was the first disc that I ever threw, and the first one I ever bought.
Wow.
was another JLS.
That's where I bought mine too. It was a beast.
You
Just
bought
like-
a Beast?
Yeah.
From Oklahoma Joe's?
From Oklahoma.
Oh, that
Jazz.
used to be the spot.
That was the only place I knew that sold discs.
Which makes sense. Like
Yeah.
you're like you live close to there.
Yeah.
Rosie's like your course. I
Yeah.
mean, we play Rosedale weekly
Yeah.
together. So that's awesome. LBRC, man.
What was your first?
That is a whole nother podcast for sure. Because that's like there's a lot there for sure. But you did. So you said Massachusetts.
Yeah,
right?
so we after my wife finished her PhD at KU, she got a job in just outside Boston, and so we were kind of thinking through where we might go live, and that was one of the opportunities. And I'd gone up and played at that point the Vibram Open. And I was like, yes, I can go live there. It's beautiful up there, and Maple Hill is awesome. We ended up living about an hour or so. We were just south of New Hampshire, but about an hour from Maple Hill. So I would get out there sometimes. But my home course was about 20 minutes away, called Fort Devens. It's a decommissioned Army base, and it is, for the Kansas City guys, it is an extreme version of Down Under. It is Down Under with more hills, with tighter lines, and just a little crazier, bigger rocks. Like, it was beautiful. And it's kind of a polarizing course up there. A lot of people hate it because it is like Down Under. A lot of the pros really don't want to play there. But it was just something where it was the closest for me to get to. They would draw their league was huge up there. There was ice and snow on the ground, and there'd be 50 and 60 people showing up for league on a Wednesday night. And so it was just kind of like one of those things you could go to, and there's always good competition. And then like just I think I fell in love with like the change in elevation, the rocks, the way they use the rocks, instead of just kind of being there. Like they were implemented on several holes. They were like important features on the hole, instead of just being something off in the distance you looked at. It was like, this defines that hole. Hole 4 there is like a tight tunnel shot where you crest up and you have to throw this elevator type disc that pops up and then floats down, and there's 2 rocks that you have to cut through the valley of to get close to the basket. And it's like, it's just really just beautiful.
Which is probably nothing like you had played up to that point. Or?
It's nothing like Kansas Prairie golf, where
Right.
I was used to coming from like Waco and playing down in Emporia and playing like, big open courses. So
courses.
like, yeah, I went up there, and at any time there was a pop-up, or not a pop-up, it was a C tier at a ball golf course. And it's like, I won that one because nobody else was used to playing in the wind on a ball golf course. But it's like, well, I literally just moved from this, and this is easy compared to that. But learning, tight tunnel shots and learning like what woods golf is like that was a formative experience for me.
Yep. So we're kind of present. When did you say you got your land here? So you went to Massachusetts for a little bit, but then you decided to come back here.
We decided to come back, and that was mostly my wife didn't like her job. She was pushing papers around. Like, she's more driven than, it was a good work-life balance. It was a great gig. It just wasn't fulfilling. She mentioned to her former advisor, hey, I don't like my job. If you hear of anything, let me know. And he said, well, the department's expanding and we're looking for new professors. And she jumped on it because that's what she'd always wanted to do anyway. She just thought she'd need some more industry experience and some more time away, but just kind of happened to work out right. And then, we came back here and we were looking at places to move. We'd always wanted to live in the country. We'd gotten used to Massachusetts rent. And so a mortgage on 70 acres is surprisingly comparable to a 2-bedroom outside Boston. Made it a lot easier to make that our first house, and we decided we never want to move again. So once we found our place, hopefully we'll be there until my tractor flips over, or
And you had in mind that you wanted a course.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
when you were looking. So what was that like? How did you choose that land and come to that piece of land?
We got really lucky. We were looking in the 30, 40 acres. And a little bit lower price point than what we ended up paying for it. But all the 30, 40 acre tracts had bigger houses. They were nicer houses, and they were much more expensive. The piece of land that we ended up buying has a little bit of hay ground, a little bit of pasture ground, and about half of it, so like 35 acres or so, is really rugged, rocky, wooded, not great for building, not great for farming, but perfect for disc golf. And I I studied the overhead maps on it. Before we bought it, I remember I took a trip down to Texas to play a B tier in the winter, and I was just looking at Google Maps above, like looking like all the land, and there's these 2 big hay fields that had these natural fairway shapes in them, which one of those is 17 on the championship course now. You guys didn't play it because it's hay season right now, and hay just literally got cut yesterday.
You pointed it out to us. So.
Yeah. So like we drove in from the north side of our property, and I remember we crested a hill and I saw the hay fields, and I'd looked at them so many times on Google Maps. I knew exactly what I was looking at. And then there was just like I saw it and I was like, I know I can do something with that. I know not only can I do something with that, I can do something special with that too, because it's there. I mean, there's a lot to work with. Especially in the woods. I feel like you get a lot of freedom when you're designing in the woods because you get to make your fairways. You get to cut down the trees you want. You get to you still use the land. You don't want to cut the big trees if you can avoid it. But like, I knew that there was going to be a great course there.
So it was definitely like priority wise. It wasn't like, that was like a big thing I was really curious about. I think that we just didn't get into when we were playing, but it was, okay, you're looking for land. Like that's obvious, but it was definitely like, it was land because of disc golf and then yes, if I can farm on it, or is it like, I know I want both?
Yeah, it's kind of both. I've always been more interested in the vegetable farming than row crop farming. And so vegetable farming just doesn't take as much land. Honestly, there's not enough hours in the day to do a huge plot of vegetable farming anyway. So even on like the pasture land, it's kind of set fallow this year a little bit because we're doing this house edition. But out around hole 5, 6, 7, I've got a bunch of plots out there where I had my garlic. I put a bunch of asparagus in. I'm going to do some wildflowers. I've done tomatoes out there before. Hole 18 throws right over a garden that I plowed up and put the fence around. And like a couple of years ago, I had 200 tomato plants in there, and I had onions and peppers and all sorts of stuff. And so I'll get back to doing more of that and like finding a balance between both disc golf and farming. This year it's a disc golf and home edition instead of farming because there's not enough hours in the day basically.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Well, that's, and how many, you said how many acres is it total?
It's just under 70, like just
and
under.
Like how much of the acreage is disc golf versus like your house and the farm and just everything else?
Yeah. So, I really don't disambiguate the farm against the disc golf course because I want them to be connected together. Part of what I really would like to do with Foxtail Farm is like bring people who are used to city golf out to the country and kind of show them this is how farming happens. This is what a vegetable garden looks like. These are, not things that people don't understand, but they don't understand the scale, or maybe they just don't have the exposure in some instances. So like that's part of why I want you to throw over a garden on 18. That's part of why the garlic's out by 6 and 7 is like, those are out of bounds areas, but like you kind of look at them as a disc golfer and you're like, it's a little hairy over there. And you're like, oh, well, what's that weird plant? It looks kind of intentional. And then like, you're like, oh, it's garlic. And then, so I guess back to the question, it's probably about 45 to 50 acres that I use for the disc golf course.
I think that's more than people think, would be my guess.
Yeah.
I feel like in my mind, most people think like, if I had like 10 acres.
Yeah, and you could do it. That's the thing I always try to steal, like to go back to the initial question of like, everybody wants to own a disc golf course. If you want to own a disc golf course, but you don't want to sit on a mower, buy 10 acres. Buy 5 acres and put in 6 baskets with 3 different tee pads, or do something like that to make it fun, and not just have to work on it all the time. Part of the reason I use 50 acres is because I intentionally leave a buffer between almost every hole. I don't really like long walks if I can avoid them, but a lot of intermediate walks isn't too bad. And then by leaving a little bit of a buffer, it's kind of a lesson that I learned early on. I redesigned a couple holes because they weren't quite working right. And because I changed one hole, I changed hole 4 to make it a lot better. It necessitated that I change hole 5 because it played through where that tee pad was supposed to be. So now I'm trying to build in buffers on each one of those holes so that if one hole changes, it doesn't change 2 holes, 3 holes, 4 holes. It allows me some flexibility to change my mind because I do that a lot. Without having to change everything or do like a significant amount more work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did mention like some of the 40-acre properties out there are like way more expensive. I will say like when driving out there, like just like to get to your place, like I don't know if that's what I was looking at, but there are some very pretty it's a very pretty area to drive into.
It's not what most people would think of when you hear Kansas. It's
No,
like
not-
rolling hills. You have tons of great elevation change. Like,
Yeah.
That last like left turn, I don't know whose land that is, but like their land looks incredible. Their house looks incredible. The backdrop, because you're high enough to see it, I was like, okay. Like I could see without even talking to you, I was like, this. I could see how Cooper would think this is a great spot for a course.
Yeah. So I've had a forester walk around the property with me, and the forester mentioned when they were walking around the property, they're like, this land is a lot more like Missouri river land than it is like Kansas in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, it is Kansas, but it doesn't feel like it. And then we're situated in a valley. Historically, it was called Friendship Valley. But we're kind of in that valley in there. So like there's weird little things with microclimate that are interesting, like even just growing things, you start to learn about your land a little bit more. The farm I work at in Bonner, everything that they grow is done about a week earlier than mine because we're just a little bit colder. We get a little bit less sun. And that's part of what makes it cool for disc golf too, is like, because we're down in this valley, it makes the elevation up to the top of the precipice more striking. It's sort of a comparison thing instead of just like, that's not significantly higher than standard Kansas land would be. But because we're in a valley, it's more noticeable.
Interesting. And you're the wildlife guy, right? Like you are.
This is my herpetologist right here.
Yes,
Some people might say
herpetologist.
that.
How many pictures of snakes have I texted you and said, what snake is this?
Probably 30% of our texts.
I just heard that you sent him like pictures of eggs.
We were tearing down the chimney and I found there's a little milk snake in there I got a picture of, and there were some eggs next to it. And I sent it to Kevin. I said, what are these eggs? And he said, they're probably snake eggs. And we do have copperheads, so I did smash them.
Copperheads have
Live birth. I knew that. Oh, I knew that too.
Yeah, you've learned this already.
I know, and
via
I
text.
wasn't even. But see, I forgot it. I know that they give live birth, but I forgot. But that's why I keep you around, Kevin.
Yeah.
What else are you identifying for him out there?
Anything and everything.
Anything and everything. Plants and animals.
If he needs it, yeah. Plants. I would say I'm the animal guru.
Is this like you're texting him out of like concern? Like, what is this? Or is it like, what is this?
Both. There's a couple times before I could positively identify a copperhead. It was, this is what I think it is, right?
Right.
And then Kevin said yes. And then some of the times it's like, I don't think this is a copperhead, rattlesnake, whatever. It's fine, right? And he's like, it looks like a prairie king snake.
Yeah,
or
if it's not a copperhead, it's a prairie king snake.
Yeah. We've got a lot of snakes.
Every time.
So many snakes.
So, okay. But like people don't need to be like fearful of it.
No,
Like I remember
no.
when we were playing, I think it was hole
There's
4.
one spot.
4.
Four.
You were telling me about a spot.
Yeah, I saw a copperhead over there. So
Like, before you put your foot in there.
I always warn people, like,
Yeah.
that's something I feel I think is a good service.
For
it's
sure.
like, I'm not worried about it. There was a disc golfer over in Lecompton that got bit by a copperhead a couple weeks ago. They're not going to kill you. I mean, I think the last snake fatality in Kansas was in the 50s.
That's actually good to hear.
Yeah, even if they bite you, it's painful. But most of the time, unless you can positively identify the snake, they don't even give you the antivenom for it, because some people have more reaction to that than they do the snake bite. So they treat you for the pain. They make sure you don't get they give you antibiotics, that kind of stuff, but they don't actually treat the venom because it's more painful than anything else. I just try to make sure people don't get hurt because that's bad for the disc golf course.
But you're covered with that waiver.
I have a waiver that as far as I know, and we're a registered agritourism business, which has an additional liability shield, and there's all sorts of things that I think we're doing the right way.
Which is also a thing that people don't think about.
Yeah. There's also it's even. I remember when I was working at the Dynamic Disc Kansas City shop. I don't remember who told me this, but they said, trust people all you want, but don't trust the insurance company. The insurance company is the one that will want to get their money back. So I tell people that when I come out, it's like, I trust you. You know, I've invited you out to my property, basically. Mm-hmm. So I trust you to be out here. I don't think you're going to sue me, but I don't want your insurance company to sue me either. So be careful, have fun, check for ticks. This is the normal thing I tell most people when they come out. Check for ticks, check for snakes.
The ticks are horrendous right now.
Oh, they're bad this year.
Everywhere.
It was too warm of a winter. We didn't have a cold enough winter, and it's just, if we keep having warm winters, it'll be like that for a while.
It's my first experience with the little freckle ticks.
Yeah.
They're the size of your freckle. Mm-hmm. You're just like, something's on my leg, but I can't see it.
Yeah.
And then you look harder and you see them. And they're kind of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was like full pants and like
Yep.
long sleeves, like just in case.
That's pretty much what I do as long as I can possibly stomach it. And then I wear shorts, t-shirt in the summer. And then part of the reason we do the tournament in October is because it's better golf weather and you can wear pants and a hoodie.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's part of the reason the big event that I do is in October. It's nicer to golf then. It's nicer on a farm
The course
property.
probably looks like peak.
Yeah.
It'll look way better than.
That's the other reason is I can get ahead on everything by October. Whereas like right now, like I'm drowning, treading water, trying to keep up on my mowing, especially it's been a wet summer anyway. So I do everything I can, but come October, it's like, well, the last time I mowed is like 3 weeks ago and it still looks good. So that's kind of another reason it's in October.
Sounds like you're calling for weed eaters, though. If anybody's got one,
If you got a
they're
weed
more
eater,
than
yes,
welcome.
absolutely. I do work on work trade. I let people golf if you come out and help me do some stuff because I think that's an important thing to do. My friend Matt Jenkins, this is how I know I'm not a crazy person who likes to mow and weed eat. Is my friend Matt Jenkins comes and helps me weed eat, and when he's done, he says thank you. He appreciates the opportunity to come out and work on a disc golf course and to run a weed eater. And like he's told me, it's just something he worked landscaping, fell in love with it. And it's just something, he lives in the suburbs. He lives close to Rosedale. And like he has some weeding to do, but he doesn't have a bunch. He's got another guy he helps weed eat. He comes out to my place. He like asks if he can come out and like, some people just really like doing that. And like, that's something I want to facilitate too. So yes, if you have weed eaters and want to come out before October, it's all hands on deck this year.
Nice. Well, you also have talked about a little bit about like the value of disc golfers working on a disc golf course.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go like into that a little bit more?
Sure. This is one of the things that I have way too much time to think about on a mower is some of the advantages that I think that I have over, let's use another local course as an example, like Blackhoof. Mm-hmm. I like Blackhoof. It's fun, it's grindy, it's challenging, very well kept. The difference is the people who are doing the maintenance there are not disc golfers. So like every tree that I cut down, the question is, does this improve play? Does this improve aesthetic for the hole? Does this make it more fun? Does this make it too easy? Does this make it, is this branch unfair? Like these are all the things that I'm considering when I'm cutting branches, cutting trees down. A parks guy who's out there with a mower or a chainsaw or a weed eater, they're just doing their job. They're getting paid for it. They're not disc golfers, so they don't think, well, if you throw this flex shot that comes in here, then like it'd be lucky if you got in this way, but like it should be accessible, or they're just not going to that next step, I think. And I think that's a big advantage, not even over just other parks, but other designers, because a lot of other designers, they draw something on a map, they hand it to somebody and say, go do that. They come back for site visits. They say, you're doing this right. You're doing this wrong. Let's do this here. And then they repeat that process a couple times. Whereas like I've lived there for 10 years. I know the land better than anybody maybe ever will. And because of that, I think that gives me a pretty big leg up on what's going on. I think it's an unfair advantage, honestly, to be out there with a chainsaw and doing it. Like it's just not even a fair competition.
Okay. So they're just like go out there, but somebody's telling them what to cut down and stuff right there.
Yeah. They're marking trees and they're doing things, but I think there's an extra level where you're pruning limbs, where you're considering like shot shape, specifically with limb removal, not even just tree removal, because generally tree removal will be handled by like spray paint or marking tape or something. Take these out. That for me, it's like I think there's a lot of benefit in I don't have to take a tree down. I can take a branch down. If I take this branch down, it makes the hole fair but hard and interesting. Whereas like you might just mark a tree and like you could take the whole tree down and then the hole gets too easy or lacks interest or whatever's going on with it.
Well, yeah, because I think we were playing. It may have been hole like 2 or something. It was very early on. It's like you got your little kid's garden that or is it a garden?
3, yeah, hole 3, yeah, the little flower garden.
Little flower garden. Like I think 2 of us clipped the branch. It was like the same branch, and you're like, that branch is coming down.
Yep.
I feel like that's what you're talking about. I was like, don't take the whole tree down.
Yes,
we just need the one branch, and then it's fine.
Yep. And that's the other part of it too, is like courses are not dead. They're alive and living things, and like part of improving them, like part of that maintenance is like a relational type maintenance. That branch wasn't a problem for years. it's gotten big enough, it's becoming a problem. It's going to come out now because it's been a problem. The same thing on that hole. There's cedars that shape the lower portion, this lower V shape. They're encroaching a little bit. They're not going to come out. I'm not going to take all the branches out. I am going to trim like maybe 6 inches on either side of them. And it's just going to make that gap just a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fair. It's going to strike that balance that I like to get to of, I want people to look at a shot and say, I can do that, but am I going to do that? Like that's the right question I want people's head to be around, is like, am I going to accomplish that? And it's almost like a little bit of a fear, a little bit of a challenge. You don't want somebody to look at something and say they can't do it. That's not interesting. No. But if they look at it and say, this is doable but hard and interesting, like that's the next level. So I think that sort of answers the question I think you're getting at. Like I think that's the benefit, is everything that's taken down. That's why I let people out here with weed eaters, but not chainsaws. I've had some guys help me with chainsaws, and it's under very strict direction.
Right.
People have offered to come out with chainsaws, and I've told them no.
Can't put it back in.
You can't put it back in. No, I've had a whole thing. I call it the theory of slow cutting. The very early iterations that Kevin and some other people were playing, they weren't fair. And they were intentionally not fair because you can't put it back, just like you said. But we can leave it in for a while, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, we change our mind later.
I feel like you also don't even really know what it looks like until it's gone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we were at our lake house, and we can throw from the dock over our little water beach area to a land that we put a basket on, maybe 150-foot throw, but it's really fun. But it was just like, it was so tight. I'm like, Dad, we got to cut this one down. Mm-hmm. And then I knew it would open up the shot, but I was like, it's also just for fun, so it doesn't matter how it opens it up, because I have other players that like, they can barely, whatever, throw it up there. So it's just like, and we got a bunch of kids, and like someday I want them to be able to throw that far. But you cut it down, and you're like, oh damn, like it was a lot. Yeah. It looked like a little limb that was kind of annoying, and it's like, oh, now it's wide open.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was literally one branch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a benefit in taking your time and thinking about it too. Like you're saying, you don't know what it looks like until you cut it down. But if you kind of like leave it there for a while and stew on it, I think your imagination, your creativity starts to take over, and you start to like consider what it would look like, and like your brain kind of pieces those parts together, and then you can decide if it's a good idea at that point or not.
Yeah, I feel like he's speaking your language to some degree, with just because you grew a bunch of plants in your garage, like you're the wildlife man. Like, is this like, what are your thoughts on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I told you Cooper was a madman, and here he is proving me right. I don't quite know how to answer the question.
Well, you've walked around with them, like you've seen it before it even was cut, and like now you've played it and it's cut. Like,
I've played a lot of rounds with Cooper out there, and I've probably played 0 rounds where Cooper wasn't testing something. Like whether we're having fun, whether it's competitive, whether there's other people tagging along, Cooper's testing that limb.
He's watching you. Yeah, he's watching you play
that tree. That he brings people with different skill sets, different skill levels out, and just watches how the course plays. I don't quite know how well he tracks like average scoring and stuff, but I think like his decision making is like based almost wholly on like observation and on like fairness, level of interesting play that he can provide, while keeping it as difficult as possible. Championship level. Yeah.
I think we even got a little bit of that. I just felt like we were joking a little before you guys even got here, that I was just like, we came out and we played with you. You were hosting us, and I felt like we didn't even ask you that many questions, but like you were definitely like talking the whole time, which is like not a bad thing, because we came out there to listen to you.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like it was on like every single tee shot. If we clipped anything, you had like a story and a thought and a might and a might not and all of that.
Absolutely. Like almost everything anyone has ever told me about the course, I remember. Mm-hmm. And not all of them are right ideas, and not all of them are good points, but they're stashed back there. And then if enough people start saying it, then I start thinking I might be wrong about something. But yeah, like what Kevin said is, I mean, it's exactly right. Like I do track stats in some capacity, but I only really track them at like the Foxtail Championship or PDGA leagues or anything official where people are like giving it that extra bit of effort. Mostly it's by feel. And I think a lot of it too is like, so the Matt Oval and his crew that come out, like they're advanced intermediate level golfers, masters level golfers. They're good golfers, but like not like a pro tour caliber course golfer. And so like, I think that's one of the things that like I get all skill levels to come out and I watch them play it. And like, I want it to be hard, but I also like, I don't want to be so grindy that it's not fun. And like, I think that's one of the big improvements. When I very first started, first put holes in this, I tell people this is at least version 10 of the course. It was bad. It wasn't good. There were bad holes out there. And some of them were things that we were trying, and some of them were things that we were forcing, and some of them were just necessary to learn that they were bad. Even some of the things were to learn that I couldn't maintain an area, or that I had to change something because like I started designing around maintenance at one point because like there's not enough hours in the day. So if I move this basket back here and I don't have an hour and a half of weed eating, I can keep the course playable. So I started doing different things like that. But yeah, it's bringing everybody in, watching how they all play it. I pay special attention when Kevin comes out. You guys are good golfers when you come out. When Isaac comes out, Peter comes out, any of like the local high quality golfers, I pay special attention to watch how they play it because that's ultimately who I'm gearing it towards. But everybody else, like I want to make sure that the smile doesn't leave their face.
Right.
I want to like crush them a little bit, but not in a way that makes them want to quit disc golf.
Yeah.
But legitimately, my favorite critique or my favorite review of the course is when somebody comes off and they're just grinning and they're like, I got absolutely trashed, but I had the best time. That's the highest praise I could receive. That's gotta be
a hard balance.
Yeah, that's the highest praise I could receive on the course, and it's my favorite thing is when somebody's just out of their depth, they're not prepared for a pro tour type course, and then they get up there and they're like, it was hard, but it was fun. Like that's the right balance.
I think like you have those fair shots, and like that gives you the opportunity to like make that epic shot and like get onto the green and make a tricky putt, because like all of your greens are pretty challenging, but like you make greens, a tricky putt and like you feel so good when you get that.
Yeah, that's sure. the hero shot. I like to try to think what the hero shot's going to look like. The rescue shot, like I was saying earlier, like I like every gap to be big enough that you think you can do it, but the question is, should you do it? I think one of the ones we were talking with the Copperhead hole earlier, hole 4, part of that is like, you know, it's got that big shelf up there, and all I can think is like, I want people to end up on top of this shelf and be putting straight downhill 35 feet with OB behind it, but you're 15, 20 feet above the basket, because that's cool. You don't get to do that a lot of places. And like, there's this extra thing where you're like, if I make this right now, people are going to talk about it later. People are going to, you're going to drink a beer later and you're going to be talking to your friends. You're like, you remember when Brendan threw that one in? Like, it's going to be like that kind of thing. It builds a lore unto itself. And like, I think that's the fun part.
Yeah. Even, you know, when you go out there and you get your butt kicked, it sort of has that old school tournament vibe to it, where these days everybody sort of packs up and goes home. At Foxtail, there's an entirely different vibe. Everybody sort of congregates, talks about their successes, their failures, their fears, anxieties. They're very curious about how people manage certain holes. And it's exciting to listen in on, to be a part of, take notes, come back. Try again.
What is that difference? Because I feel like if I went to a course and I played it and I got hammered or whatever, is it just because it's like we all know it's Cooper's land and it's like it's personal to some degree? Like it feels like what I feel like there's something there that people are like, there's a reason for it. Like, yes, we got hammered. It was really difficult, but because I feel like is that factor. Do you think that's true a little bit? It's
certainly possible. It's hard to know the counterfactual. You know, I can't know if people are telling me what they think or what they think I want to hear. It's possible.
Right.
I hope what I hope it is some level of intention where like every hole I try to make sure there's a signature, that there's some kind of special feature to look at, play around, consider, and then every hole I want to evoke some kind of feeling, usually anxiety, usually sometimes excitement or awe or something. But I want every hole to like not just be another hole that you've played, but something entirely different that you're confronting and have to navigate your way through. And I think that's part of what makes it interesting. I would say maybe the other part is I try to think about, I've come at design considering par as good. So like in disc golf, mostly like birdie's good, but I want par to be good. So I try to break each hole. If it's a par 3, I want at some point on that hole, you have to have thrown a good shot. Or not a good shot, a great shot. Because great shots net birdies in my mind. On a par 4, I want at some point you have to have thrown a great shot. You can throw a bad shot and you can throw an excellent or a supreme shot. Or you can throw a good shot and a great shot. Or you can throw a great shot and a good shot. You can have a great drive that parks you and you can drop in, or you can make the great putt from 60 feet that's a death putt. Like each one of those, I think doing it that way gives you the opportunity to make a great shot more frequently. And I think that maybe that might be part of it. The other part could just be building in signature, building in feature. I think Kevin was sort of talking earlier about how Precipice is the hole 14 out there. It's out on this rocky ledge. It's only 200 feet, and there's a sheer drop off behind it. Yep. It's a tunnel shot. I think it's one of the hardest holes on the course, and it's probably the signature hole out there.
Was that the first hole that you found? Not to interrupt.
No, sort of.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, sort of. 18 was the first hole that was designed. Okay. 14 was the first time my wife and I walked the property through chest-high thorns and rose bushes, like just the nastiest rough you've ever walked through. We were stumbling our way through, completely lost, had no idea what we were doing. And we found the precipice, and she told me I wasn't allowed to put a basket there, and I knew I was going to ignore her. There just wasn't an option. There had to be a basket there. And then the second part of that design was I had a rule for myself that I had no holes under 200 feet on the championship course. That hole is 200 feet long. It is specifically at that number and to highlight the green. But yeah, that's probably the signature. But on each hole, like I want... part of it is I want each person to have their own hole that's their favorite. That's their own signature. That's the
15.
The big downhill, yeah.
Oh,
you guys played the shorter version because normally it goes out into the hayfield.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like 420, 425. You can put a putter on it. It's 80 feet downhill. It's just a tunnel shot.
Yeah.
Oh, so you played it within the tree line, inside of the tree line?
Yeah, they played the roots version.
Okay, yeah, you play out into the field, and it's like, it is the most delicate putter shot on the most perfect angle you can throw.
Yeah.
When it's
I don't think I threw
executed-
my putter very hard on the shorter one, and I made it out into the field.
Yeah.
So.
When you execute 15, it's just like, it's perfect. You threw the exact shot that you wanted, and it did exactly what you told it to, and it just floats. And you get so long to just watch it just float. And then sometimes it keeps going, and you're 100 feet past the basket out of bounds because, it's so far downhill. But that's one people, when they play through, they always say they want to empty their bag, and I ask them how many discs they want to lose. Because I've learned the hard way not to throw too many on that one.
I bet.
I think that just goes back to like your course has so much variety, and it's because of that intention that you were talking about. It's like I remember you telling us like how even the flow of the course, like, could you talk more about that? Like, it's not the same shot on any given hole.
Sure. Yeah. So I tried to make sure that the course punches and counter punches. I really don't like when you throw the same shot over and over and over again, even though like when you're playing well and throwing that shot well, that course is fun that day because you're shooting 14 under or whatever. It doesn't feel rewarding in the same way. So like, I want you to start with a touchy par 4, and then you have to go to this like kind of weird island par 3, and then you go to like this gap shot par 3, and then you go to one of the weirdest, like each one shapes left, shapes right, goes uphill, goes downhill, but I don't really want them to be like too much in succession. There's a couple holes out there right now that I'm sort of unhappy with, and it's because they're too similar to the previous shot. I think standalone, they're great holes, but like part of me is itching to change them a little bit because they're just like a little too similar. And people have talked me out of this, which is why I have people out to tell me what to do, is because I'm not always right about it. But like Peter Burris especially, I wanted to change hole 3. And he's like, he loves hole 2. I wanted to change hole 2. He's like, you can't change hole 2. And I was like, okay, Peter, you're right. And then I wanted to change hole 3 and make it a par 4 because I thought the shot shape was too similar to par 2 or to hole 2 on the championship. He's like, you can't change hole 3. It's great. And it's like, yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm going to get it. I want to change things because that's part of what I want to do. I like the design aspect. Sometimes I need people to keep me reined in a little bit. But yeah, so that's something I've tried to intentionally think about. I don't remember where this was. Macbeth said once about how like downhill shots are fun, but like then you just have to throw so many uphill shots in a row, it gets boring. And so I've tried to consider that. Like our land is very much in a valley, and then we have a hill. So part of the way I've addressed that is you play hole 8, which throws across a flat spot, very uphill, and then you play a par 5 that plays along a shelf and then uphill at the end, and then you just take a little bit of a walk and you go play a flat to downhill shape. That way you're not throwing uphill, because that just gets grindy and boring and challenging.
Uphill shots.
Yeah, it's too much in repetition. Every once in a while, it's kind of fun, but when you do it too many times in a row, it's not great. So that's something I've tried to consciously think about is like, well, this shot finishes left, this shot finishes right, this shot finishes up. I try to balance that by the next one finishes down or finishes left, or, well, we're going to finish this one straight, and we're just going to let it be that way.
Yeah. I feel like there's a perspective I want to hear. Like it's it's the daydreamer perspective. Okay, I just bought a bunch of land. Because I'm building a disc golf course. Day one, you're walking out there. It's right here. I just got to go find hole 1. I mean, what is day 1? I'm building a disc golf course even look like? Like, what was your I don't even know.
Yeah. First and foremost, you have to learn the land that you have. There's no cheating that part. There's no finding hole 1 before you know the rest of the land. John Houck said, once you decide routing on a course, 90% of the design is done. So once you decide what direction you're flowing, like you're basically done with the design. I don't think that's 90% is an exaggeration there.
Yeah.
The way that I treated it was I would go on walks in the woods in the winter when the leaves were down and the trees were bare, and I would find things that looked interesting, and I would mark them on Google Maps. And I'd write big wide hedge, or there's a rock up there, a jasper rock, the big jasper, or big grapevine, or precipice, or we have a tree up there, a big walnut tree we call mother walnut, or a little catch pond that we call little Walden. Like little things that like we've found over the time. I find all of these points and I mark them on there, and then it's sort of connect the dots.
What are the points? I want to put a basket here, or is it just like these are just interesting points?
Yeah, it's these are interesting points, and they would make a good spot for a basket or a tee pad.
Okay.
Some things are more interesting as basket locations, and some things are more interesting as tee pad locations. So like a tee pad, you're standing around, you're taking score, you have time to look around and consider what you're seeing. Baskets, you're very focused.
Right.
You are focused on that thing. And so generally on a basket location, you're talking about elevation change, branch location, tree location. On tee pads, you're talking about, oh, that grapevine's huge. Or, just things that are like kind of different and interesting. Like there's a view on hole 9's championship tee pad where you can like see out over the valley. And it's like, this is maybe not the best basket location, but it's a good tee pad. You're standing around, you're looking, oh, wow, look at that valley out there. That's beautiful. So yeah, the way I treated it was very much find point of interest, play connect the dots. The other thing that I did is I did a lot of morel hunting. One spring, most of the woods got designed while I was morel hunting because I was out there. I was walking through the densest forests. I was trying to look for these tiny little, 2-3 inch mushrooms. And I just found things that were just massively interesting to me. And so I just kind of kept going from there.
So like about the change, like changes seems to be just constant.
Yes.
Like you're thinking about changing. Like I loved how earlier you were talking about the buffer you were building in. So like, what are the kind of next changes that you're planning? Like take us through a little bit of like the vision you see for the next year, 5 years.
Sure. I would like to continue to develop the roots course and the championship course, and I would like them to be more and more divergent. So right now on the 2 layouts, hole 3 is the same, hole 5 is the same, hole 6 is the same, and then 13 and 14 are the same. The only hole that I want to overlap between those 2 layouts is the precipice, so hole 14. I plan to fix hole 5 and 6, whether they stay for championship or go to roots. I'm not sure yet. I've got some land between 9 and 6, which I think is really interesting, like side hill. Going to take a lot of work to clear it and it's going to be a project to do. I think there could be a really cool par 5 there. Or par 4. I could maybe fit a par 5 there. Now you got me thinking.
Yeah, work through it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
But basically, like, I want to diverge those 2 experiences more. I want them to exist on the same land because that allows me to be more efficient about my maintenance because I'm mowing the same exact fairways, but I want the courses to feel completely different. So if you come out and you play roots and you come out and play championship, you're in the same place, but it's not the same thing. You're not throwing the same shots in the least, other than hole 14, because it's probably the signature. And I had it cut out of a previous short layout and people cussed me out for it. So I'm not changing my mind on that one. we'll put that there. But basically I want to continue to develop those. I'd like to get the championship course is a par 64 right now, which was the par at Crokel. I think that's a good par to hit, but I kind of want to be at 66, 67. Okay. I'd like another couple par 4s. There's a stretch where you go hole 2 and 3 on championship are par 3s, and then 5 and 6 and 7 are par 3s. It's too many par 3s on the front 9. It feels a little too similar. So if I break that up and I say, well, 5 maybe plays over here, but then we change 6 to be a par 4 here, then 7's this cool gap shot that you get to make out 400 feet down the hill, punching through a gap with OB right behind it. Then we've created that variety that we were talking about earlier. So I want to inch up to that 66, 67, but I don't want it to be like a hard and fast goal. Like it's a target, but it might change. Some courses, like I'll talk about Black Hoof again for a second. I know when they were looking at doing that course, the city told them 10,000 feet. You need to be 10,000 feet. I never want to have something that is so much of a bright line that I can't change it or that I can't react to it and make something that might be better, by breaking out of my box, by breaking out of this like artificial constraint that I put myself in. I don't want to like forego that possibility. So like 66, 67 is the goal, but if it stays at 64 and it's the best version of itself, that's great. I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah. What did I want to ask? I wanted to ask like, sustainability. Like that's what, like just noticing out there, like we talked a little bit about just, zero, like there's not a whole lot of funding coming into this thing, right? So it's just like, it's a little bit of making do with what you got / just, I don't know, just, again, it just comes back to like, hey, I'd love to have a course. Like,
yeah.
Okay, but what does that like look like? How are you making tee pads?
Sure.
Like where are you getting baskets? Like you spoke a little bit about where you get baskets and like, spend your tournament money wins and things like that. But I did notice like, it was like AstroTurf and it was clearly like from some football field and that kind of a thing.
Yeah,
but
100% recycled. Yep.
Yeah.
That's something. Yeah. So there's ecological or environmental sustainability I try to hit, and then a financial sustainability. My goal with the course isn't to get rich. My goal, I'd like to make a living someday. I've had a lot of freedom and flexibility because my wife is a professor. She has a good job. I can mostly take care of the property so that we can enjoy it right now.
You joked as her being one of your sponsors.
She absolutely is. Like no question. This wouldn't happen without someone who's abundantly understanding and puts up with what Kevin has termed as madness, which is correct. So I have a lot of privilege and a lot of like ability to do things that most people don't get to do. They have to financialize their course. They have to make it economically viable. My goal right now is like break even plus a little bit. That's kind of the financial goal for me. Eventually I'd like to make a living doing it, make a wage. I think that if I can get to the point where I do that, the course becomes even better. If I can spend, right now my goal is 15, 20 hours a week on the course. If I can spend 40 hours a week like most people do in the office on my course, it's going to be one of the best courses you've ever played. I will, like, I could go out there and cut it with scissors and it would be good. So if I had that kind of time to put into it, then I could do that. On the financial side of things, like this is a financial environmental conjunction. I don't want to put new inputs into the system if I can avoid it. I don't want to, like, I could do concrete tees, but I can do recycled turf tees. I don't want to mow it every 3 days because I don't want the carbon emissions. I mow it about every 2 weeks. I try to run a weed eater, which is very efficient. A gallon of gas takes a week and a half, 2 weeks to go through with a weed eater for me with the amount of time I can do it. So like compared to commuting to an office, I'm not putting a bunch of carbon inputs into the system. Even merching out, like people have told me you need merch. I try to avoid it. I do Frisbees because everybody throws Frisbees. I have a shirt. This is a one-off that I bought that is specifically made from exclusively North Carolina cotton. I am trying to figure out, it's like this shirt that I'm wearing traveled only 800 miles from the field where the cotton was grown to the place where the t-shirt was made to printed, and then it got shipped to me. I'm exploring like different ways to get involved with vendors who do things that are more environmentally responsible, doing things on pre-order instead of just merching out and running a retail shop. I know I had a guy who came out who has a course over in Lee Summit area. He said, with your setup, you need a retail operation. I don't want to run retail. That's a different job. That's not, I'm interested in running a disc golf course. I don't want to sell disc golf bags and Frisbees, like, except for custom stuff. I think custom art's cool. I think, stuff that highlights what you're doing is cool, but I don't want to have to carry a stock stamp Gorgon because it's the new hot thing. And then I get stuck with it.
Yep.
Even though Gorgons are nice, I did throw one the other day. And then being recycled about everything. So there's new inputs, but like my mower's used, my tractor's from 1940, my turf came from football fields. I recycled some of it from a baseball field in Olathe that they were giving away for free. I drove down there with my trailer. They loaded it up. I drove it back, pushed it off, and cut it up and put it out there. So I've got new gravel and sand under it to level it out. But like doing the best I can to make sure that the materials that I use are recycled in some capacity, or there's not too many new ones. Again, the same thing with the course. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's just sort of a target. If I can do it the right way and make a future for my girls, like that's the goal, is like help make a world that they're happy to inherit is sort of my hope.
I mean, like it goes even so far as to like the trees you take down off the course, you're using them in your house project, or you're like, I saw you posted on your Facebook group of like, I've got this thing is going to the mill. Like,
yes. Yeah. So we took down a couple trees on hole 10, which are going to make the eagle play more possible, but they're also going to become bookshelves in my house. And like we hauled some of them up to a guy about a mile north of me. He's got a mill. We're going to mill them up. We're going to use them for that. Even my friend Old Dan, who is a guy that I met at DDKC when I was working there. He's a retired carpenter, been playing disc golf since the 70s in California. He loves finding old chunks of wood on different courses and making art out of them. He'll tell you he's not an artist, but that's not true. He made the trophy for the Foxtail Championship, the traveling trophy, and all the keeper trophies that the winner will get. But basically, he comes up once every couple weeks. We drive around in the Ranger. We find interesting chunks of wood. He takes them home and polishes them up. And like beneath this thing that most people would have thrown away or burned or left in the woods to rot, there's like this hidden beauty that he's uncovered with it. And like supporting things like that, finding ways to like turn a waste product into something not only desirable, but something interesting to look at. Like that's sort of, I guess, maybe the ethos of the entire course. Like our land is zoned agricultural wasteland. and it's a disc golf paradise. Like it's just, you polish it enough and you polish and polish and polish. And then you turn something that somebody else doesn't want into something that's like really cool. And I think there's something fun about that. I think that's something valuable and interesting for society as a whole, but also just as a disc golfer. Like I find value in story. So when you win the Foxtail Championship, as Bones did last year, you get this hunk of walnut that's carved in the shape of an abstract fox that we call the walnut fox. You get to keep that on your mantle for a year. And then you get a chunk of hedge that old Dan carved up into something really cool. And like, that's your reminder that you won it that year and you want to win it again.
So on the tournament topic, like I kind of want to get your perspective too, but it's a little bit from a different perspective. It's where you live.
Yes.
So, I want to build a course on my property and I want to like host tournaments. It's like, well, what is that like being like everyone's coming to your house to play a tournament?
It's strange. And it is a part of the reason I've kept it a little bit in the know. Like a little bit like you got to kind of know somebody or you got to look on UDisc and find it, or you have to text me and ask if you can come out. I live there. So like it's not something I want like huge traffic on. I don't want Rosedale or Waterworks numbers. I want 1 or 2 groups a day. And when you're out there, the course is yours. There's nobody rushing you. You take your time. You smell the flowers. You look at the insects and snakes. You enjoy everything that's going on. But that keeps it more to where I can enjoy the land, where my family can enjoy the land. Like ultimately, I hope for a place that my daughters can grow up and enjoy being out in nature. And if I can create that while I'm creating a disc golf course and like break even on that project instead of just having sunk cost in it, that's beneficial to me too. And it's beneficial to disc golfers who get to come out. So I think there's like a mutual benefit thing here that we're kind of working on, but it is a little bit strange. And it was a hang up for a while to invite the general public out to come play beyond like friends and
to like go public.
Exactly. Yeah. The changing from UDisc of a private listing to a public listing, it took a minute.
Yeah.
It took some trust that people are okay and that they're not going to mess it up. And even after that, people would text me and say, hey, can I come play your course? And I'd send like 3 texts back like, it's hard, right? You're going to get ripped up, right? I'm a one-man wrecking crew and like I'm doing my best, but like there's thorns out there. Like, I tried to give everybody the caveats.
Yeah.
And like still I had a group come out yesterday. They made it through 1 hole and left because they lost discs all 3 of them lost discs on hole 1. And like the one who set it up, he's going to come back and play again at some point because he was bringing, his brother or whatever with him who wasn't ready for it. But it's like, I've kind of gotten past the point where I try to scare people away. And it's like, okay, I put as many warnings as you want on UDisc. You better be prepared.
And what's that like? Just like, we could all 3 speak to like, we're going to Cooper's house to play a championship level like course. Like you obviously seem like you love it. I've only been out there 1 time, but it's just like it's a totally different thing to be like, you guys want to go play Waterworks or like play like the local course. It does feel and is different.
It is, yeah. It can be a little bit of a drive for me, but like as you sort of alluded to earlier, the experience of driving into it, like it's in the valley, like when you crest that final turn in and you can sort of look over the landscape. You feel as if you're driving into somewhere special. And then you hit that last little stretch of dirt road, you turn in, you see the basket up on the hill you can't see the pond from the road, but the pond's there. Like you start getting excited to throw hole 1. I know.
And hole 1 is really fun. It's a gap shot. Is it over water?
No. It's over a spillway, but
it feels like you're throwing. It's like a gap and water, but like
the water is a
like,
threat for sure. Yeah,
for sure. But just being like, just now that I know, it's like, oh man, I'm gonna go play Cooper's property. Like it just is different. But
yeah, I think that's why it took me a while to like. Yeah. Okay, like I need to get out there. Like I always knew I needed to get out there, but it like was that hump of like, okay, like let's do it.
We have difficult local courses. Like he keeps bringing up Blackhoof. Blackhoof is a personal challenge for me. I go out there and I've gotten under par maybe 3 times out of conservatively 25. And that course tests me like almost none other. Blackhoof or Foxtail tests you on a different level. You know, you need a more complete game. You need to run the scary putts. Like there isn't a whole lot of just taking a road runner out and hitting the line, you know, laying it up, making your putt and being okay with par. Like you need to play a different kind of game than you're used to. And I like to be tested. I like to shoot well, but I like to be tested, you know, and it does the best job of that locally. And we travel quite a bit. I've played a ton of championship level courses, and it's up there with the best of them. Like Cooper says, you know, it can be rough around the edges if you can't get to it during the rain, or if you're so far off the fairway, you're in the thorns. And it's, as far as taking a group out there and making a thing out of it, it might not be appropriate for all of your friends.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be too, because we have a lot of courses that are appropriate for everybody.
All of that adds to
true.
what makes it feel so special.
So we have talked about this, like it's hard, it's a lot of work and things like that. There's kind of a topic that I've been sort of bringing up with people is just the underbrush and overgrowth. Even at Blackhoof, it's really bad.
Sure.
People talk about like all the time, and I just want to understand from your perspective, who actually like you're the guy that goes out there and has to deal with it, or maybe deal with is the wrong word. And I don't want to come off as like we're poking course designers, but like, can you just talk about underbrush off the fairway? Like,
it is a specific challenge, but it's one of those things that we keep talking about Blackhoof too. Like it's one of those things that will get better there over time. The more you maintain those areas, the better they look in the long run. So like right now, when Matt Jenkins has been coming out, we've been weed eating on hole 9, and we're not doing that with the expectation it's going to look perfect by a championship, but we're doing it with the expectation that it's going to be easier to weed eat when we have to get up there for championship. When you cut the woody stuff, when you cut the broadleaf stuff, when you cut the thorns, those grow slower than the grasses do. Okay. So you beat those back over time, and then if you're really ambitious, you can go seed it with a short-growing grass or clover or something like that, and then that'll just break in and get a little bit easier and a little bit more scrambleable. There was a point where the rough would have looked at Foxtail. The rough would have looked the same as at Blackhoof, where it's really rough right now. It's just I wasn't open to everybody then, and that was sort of intentional. Like they put a bunch of money into the course, they put a bunch of time into the course. They had a grand opening. It's public land. Like there's a lot of factors that made them open it when they opened it. I got to take my time with it, so that's a benefit. It's not even a slight on their course or their underbrush. It's just it's a function of time. In 4 or 5 years, that course is going to look a lot different. It's going to be scrambleable, whereas right now it's what I'd call Texas rough, where you're in the rough, you pitch back, that's it.
Or don't even go in. It's tough. But like we looked like that for a long time, and it was just a process of I can get a mower there. Okay. I have some time to weed eat right there. And then like once you do that over and over and over, the softer growing vegetation comes back a little quicker. The thorns go away. Okay. You mix that in with just a little bit of, like, I do a little bit of spraying on some of the stuff that's really atrocious, the poison ivy, the rose bush, some of that stuff I do some spot spraying, and like that takes care of those. And then you propagate the good plants, the ones that you like, you avoid those. When Matt comes out, he avoids the flowers for me, which is nice. Like if there's just a nice wildflower, he just goes right around it. And that's exactly what I want him to do, because there's an extra level of intentionality to it and just makes everything look better. So I feel like what I'm hearing is just so, because I play with a lot of players, and everyone like kind of like bitches about the overgrowth. And I hear this. So it really is like, it's not like, would you say it's by design to leave it, or is it like, no, everyone would love for it to be gone?
I would hope everyone would hope for it to be gone.
Okay.
That's what I would think anyway, because the thing I think about is I want the course to be hard. I don't want you to be uncomfortable. Yeah. Like I don't want you to get hurt playing or get ticks or snakes or whatever. And I try to there's only so much limit you can do on nature.
Totally.
But you want everybody to enjoy themselves and have that extra hero shot that we were sort of talking, that possibility that we were talking about earlier, that just takes time.
Yeah, okay.
Blackhoof has the advantage of traffic. So as more people play that course, more people walk around, they tramp down everything. I don't get that kind of traffic, and I don't want that kind of traffic. And so a lot more of the stuff that I do is manual. We cut it back, and then we trample it some with groups that come out, with the championship, with different stuff that goes on. But a lot more of it's like more intentional than, Joe Schmo throws it over here and walks through there. That becomes like a level of chaos involved in the maintenance. But it is still, when you throw in the rough, it is a type of maintenance. So that's your good course karma, I guess.
Yeah. So I think just to kind of wrap up a bit, but just what is the best way that people can sort of support Foxtail if they want to be involved, if they want to just this sounds incredible, I want to come play, just help us understand how we can support, be a part of Foxtail.
Sure. First and foremost, come play. That text me. It is as Scott was saying, it's a little bit of a barrier to text a stranger from the internet and ask if you can come to their house.
Yeah.
It is a thing.
We've been on Marketplace.
Exactly. Exactly. But come play. That's the number one thing that you can do to help support the project and make sure it continues to get better. As far as support for the course, there's a lot of different avenues to go, and I try to provide different avenues for different types of people. Some people are gifted with means. I'll take your money. I'll absolutely take your money. Some people are not gifted with means, and I'll take your time, or I'll take your love, or I'll take your care for the course, or your word of mouth, or whatever goes in. There's guys that come out and they bring me a half case of beer. That helps me keep going. Some guys come out and they weed eat. Some bring me $20. Some bring me $5. Some buy a disc. There's a lot of different things that you can do to sort of support the course. I'd say another thing that would be something I'm really building towards is the Foxtail Farm Championship in October. We're just every year, the second full weekend in October is going to be the Foxtail Farm Championship. It's an unsanctioned single division event, which is a tough putt for a lot of people because they look at it and say, I can't win that. And you're right, you probably can't, because Bones is probably going to win, or Isaac, or somebody. Yeah. There's a lot of really good golfers. But my goal for that event is to bring in the best Kansas City golfers, and then a lot of the best regional golfers. So out of Wichita, Nolan Ramser, or out of Des Moines, Jake Lauber, or Zachariah Johnson out of St. Louis, or bring those guys in. They're competing.
Stillwell, Brendan Norway.
There you go. We've got some cash added. We got $3,000 cash added to the event. It's 2 rounds, 2 days. First day is on shotgun start. We do fun and games afterwards, pie pan frisbee, which is a crowd favorite. We play with vintage 10 pie pans, and it's the most fun you've ever had playing disc golf, probably. As much as you love disc golf, pie pans maybe better. And then the second day is all on tee time. So that way you can gather, you can follow the lead card, you can watch them come in on 18. But really trying to build back the community spirit of disc golf tournaments that we've kind of lost, where everybody's on tee times. You may never see people you're competing against because they're off the course before you even get there. I don't want that back. I don't want to do that at my place anymore. I want you to sit around after the round and talk about what you did on the precipice, or how you made a really cool putt on hole 4, or how you were in a story that I have from last year is I was actually leading the tournament through hole 9, and then hole 10 I hit first available, and I threw roller, and had a 60-footer for par on a big par 5. And I swear if I made that putt, I would have won the tournament, but I did not make the putt. So then Bones won by a good chunk. But those are the types of things, I like to tell that story to people, because it's it was fun to be up against it and have to throw this shot. And then it's well, this shot will kind of work, and this shot will kind of work. And then you talk about that afterwards, and it builds this extra level of fun and camaraderie and community, and something I kind of think we've lost in the modern game, and something playing for 20 years that I kind of want to bring back if I can. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you guys want to add? Because I've got some gifts that I want to give out. So is there anything else you want to just shout out or anything? Any last questions? I could literally talk about this all night if you wanted to.
We'll probably continue afterwards.
I don't talk about most things this much, but Foxtail Farm I do. I say shout outs. I have to thank the Friends of Foxtail. who are friends of Foxtail, and then the Godfather, and I think everybody here knows who that is. Part owner of DDKC, Casey Moe. They've helped get the added cash for the event. And this would not be possible without my wife and my family. My dad's come out and helped me watch my girls. Like my mom's come out since she's retired. Like this isn't none of this is, as much as I talk about this and this is something that I'm doing, this is nothing that it's just me doing. This is something that there's a lot of people around supporting, people who come play, people who support, people who help do things. So thank you to everyone who's helped make this possible.
Yes. All right, I got some gifts. So first off, we'll shout out BKS. Thank you so much for providing the beverages tonight. They were delicious.
Cheers.
We got more. Cheers. Hell yeah. They're gone. They're empty. But we got more. We're probably going to have a little after show with them. So thank you so much to BKS. Also, Grip, pretty much our main sponsor right now, providing tons of gifts. We've got this nice 5-panel Grip hat.
Thank you,
Kevin.
Thank you.
Heck yes. We also got some Grip patches here. We got the Hex. We got the Galaxy. We got Good Vibes Only, which sounds like it's right up your alley. Kevin, yes, patches.
Nice.
Also, we got stickers from Grip. Give those to you. I'm just going to chuck them at you. We also got a C1X. Little sticker. Put it on your water bottle.
Nice.
Kevin, I know you love the lemonade. Flex Mini. These are actually super nice because they're not shaped like a Frisbee, so they literally slip in so nice. But they're also rubber, so they grip. But they're perfect. I know, Kevin, you want the lemonade. We got a blue here.
Oh, that's perfect. Love blue.
Yes. Also, we got some towels. You can't have enough towels in disc golf. Yes. We also have disc dividers. This is pretty new from Grip. If you don't know, you put this in your main compartment of your bag. It'll fit pretty much any disc golf bag. But think of it as like a drawer divider for all your knives, spoons, forks, that kind of thing. This is just super nice to maybe you don't carry a full bag and you just want to divide things up. So that's super nice. It's more handy than you think. And then we obviously got whale sacks from UDisc. Scott here works at UDisc. Love it so much. But you got to have your hands dry and grippy and ready to go. Nobody wants to throw sweaty Frisbees. So
It's good because I lost my last whale sack already. I'm bad at losing them. I gotta actually tie them like you're supposed
do you
to.
think was it the chuck down and leave behind, or was it fall off?
I don't know. I'm bad at I lose grip bag. That's why, or I lose chalk bags. That's why I got to do the tie like you're supposed to.
Yeah, I tied mine and I don't pull it off because.
Yep.
Well, literally, we went on a trip and I threw it behind, and it's the first time I throw it behind, I leave it behind.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
But dude, thanks so much for coming on
thank
here.
you guys for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank
Cool.
you guys.
All right, C1X out. See you guys.